Without going any further, I'd like to welcome our first speaker, which is going to be Dave Gray, Glostone, and he's going to talk to us about, what are you talking to us about?
All kinds of things.
Good, thank you. I actually know, but I forgot. Thank you, Dave.
All right. Just not long enough to get out here. I like to be able to. What I'm going to present is basically some headlines. We've got some speakers that are going to drill down into some specific subjects, but my task was to kind of cover the other stuff very quickly and just to kind of let you know what is going on out there, what you need to be aware of, what's happening, and then maybe at the end of my presentation, if there's one of the headlines that you'd like to ask questions about, we can certainly drill down into that one a little bit farther. So we'll get started. Typically, when we talk regulatory compliance, we're talking about the FMCSA and the safety end of things, but there are a couple other groups out there that regulate what you all do. One of them is the International Registration Plan, which is your plates and your tags when you travel interstate. They certainly have auditors out there that audit you and can fine you for not doing the proper things with that program. There's really not the biggest thing that happened with the IRP happened in January 2015, and you probably all have already seen that, which is basically your cab cards in your trucks now have every single state on them listed now, where in years past it used to be you would only pay for the ones that you want to travel in, and that's what would show up on your cab card. The full reciprocity program that started in January 2015, basically you have your equipment registered to go in any state, any jurisdiction as they call them, which includes the 10 Canadian provinces that border the U.S. It's already on your cab card, so if your operations change, your equipment's registered to go there. So all of that changed in 2015. What's changing in 2016 in IRP is that motor coaches, buses, it's now mandatory if they're interstate, they must have IRP plates. I think there's Blue Line is here. It's always been optional to have IRP plates on buses, but as of January 1st, 2016, it's now mandatory to have IRP plates. So with the other regulatory agency that's out there is IFTA, your fuel tax and reporting. And there was a big change that just happened in December. IFTA is an agreement by all the states and 10 Canadian provinces that border the U.S. That manages the fuel taxes and making sure every state and jurisdiction receives their amount of fuel tax money based on where the fuel was used. What changed is they passed ballot 3-2014. In order for a ballot to pass, the majority of states and provinces have to vote for it. And what that change does, it changes the language, the audit language. So when they come out to audit you for IFTA, it matches the audit language that's in IRP. So in Oregon, when you have an audit from IFTA or IRP, it's the same person. They come out and they do both at the same time. Some states have it separate. You'll get two different auditors, but in Oregon you get the same auditor. It's always good to have that auditor auditing off of one playbook versus I got rules for IFTA and I've got rules to look at for IRP. And so this ballot change changed the language to match so that they both match, which is a good thing for industry. The other thing that is new is they added language to the audit procedure. And they used words, the records that you provide must be adequate and sufficient to be able to determine your distance and your fuel. And those are key words because in the past, the IFTA auditor, the IRP auditor, they would try to piece your audit together. If you don't have sufficient adequate records, they would do their darn best to pull whatever information you have. You might have one fuel receipt from a trip across the country. They would try to use that and piece together your distance in order to audit you. And they would spend a lot of time and effort trying to piece all that together. And so this new language says they don't have to do that anymore. All they have to do is look at your records and say, are they adequate and sufficient for me to go in and audit And if not, we're going to go right to the penalty phase. The rest of the audit stops, and now you go to penalty. So that has changed with this new language. Another important piece, at least from my feeling, and I'm sure Seaman would probably agree, is that the new if the ballot details the distance records required by a vehicle using a tracking system. What is the information that needs to be kept to prove your distance in an audit? And so this new ballot has outlined basically the breadcrumbs, as they call them in the tech world, right? Of what you must keep in order to give to an auditor. So if you're using a telematics device to track your distance and you're using that for IFTA purposes, you need to make sure that the information that you are saving for 4 years matches this new language. So in your thumb drive, I think we included, I cut and pasted the specifics of what those details are, and it should be on your thumb drive. You can refer to it. But that's to me, that's an important part. If you don't have a telematics device and you're looking for one, and you want to make sure, and you want to use it for IFTA, you're going to want to make sure that it does these specific things that are outlined in this new ballot. So that is, all of that takes effect in January of 2017. So we're still under the current rules until then, but in 2017 it changes. Okay, now we'll get into the FMCSA, and you've heard that You've heard the expression that it takes an act of Congress to get something done, and in this case, with some of the changes to the FMCSA rule, it was literally an act of Congress. In the FAST Act highway bill, some of the positive things for trucking that came out of this highway bill, the FMCSA is required to publish either an advance notice of proposed rulemaking or use a negotiated rulemaking, which means before they make a rule effective, it's got to go through a notice of proposed rulemaking and comment period to give industry time to make comments, or a negotiated rulemaking. And a negotiated rulemaking is basically where they bring in stakeholders, industry people and enforcement people and anybody that's interested in a committee. The committee determines what the rule is. So the FAST Act, the highway bill, makes it mandatory that process happen. The other thing is they must do a regulatory impact analysis on rules and their potentially varying impacts on different industry segments, such as small carriers. Typically, they do an impact statement, but it's industry-wide. The industry is going to cost the industry this, or the industry is going to save that. But now they need to break it down further. What's it going to do to the small carriers? What's it going to do to the mid-sized carriers? What's it going to do to flatbed operations, or whatever the different segments that particular rule applies to? So they have to go through that procedure. So the FMCSA, their mandate is to save lives on the highway and reduce crashes. So everything that they do is measured against that. So when they come out with a rule, it is, how many lives is it going to save? And oh, by the way, it's going to have this impact. So their measurement is really based on how many lives is it going to save when they come out with a rule. So the other thing that the FAST Act did is remove the CSA percentiles rankings from public view. So you're all familiar with the 7 basic behaviors, buckets that the FMCSA has for your company. And those were all on public display. And the FAST Act has removed that where the public cannot see it. That's not to say it's still not there. It is still there behind the scenes. The FMCSA still uses that data to reach out and touch you through an intervention letter or whatever. So all of that stuff is still churning. It is still just not available for the public to see. And it's really temporary, or it's meant to be temporary. I think the Office of Budget and Management had some problems with how CSA is calculated and the methodology. And And so they said, take it off of public view until you can prove to us that it really does what you say it's going to do. So there is a possibility all of that could come back. It could come back with changes based on the study that they have to do. So for now, it's not in public view. What is in public view is this. So if you log into your FMCSA login, it's just, which anybody can do using your US DOT number, the public side shows this, which is just simply the number of inspections by month, not the violations that you receive. And I believe they can drill down in and see the actual violations, right? So that's what they can see. They can no longer see the percentiles. But this leaves some question, and I know the attorneys in the room will probably have similar questions, is, these percentiles were used once they were published, and this information is published. The court system has said, well, since that information is now publicly available, shippers, brokers must now look at that safety information in order to determine whether that for-hire carrier is safe to haul this load. And if that information is no longer public view, how do are those shippers and brokers still responsible? So that's something that is beyond me, and I have heard through the Washington Trucking Association, they made some comments in their last newsletter, was that all these shippers and the brokers, they're set up to analyze the CSA percentiles. It's not there anymore. What are they going to do? Do they ask for it? Don't they ask for it? So what they've done is, in a few cases, they've called up the carrier and says, I cannot access this. I want you to go into your site, log in, and send me your CSA information so that I can determine whether I should give you that load or not. So I don't know if that's happened to anybody here, or if anybody's seen that. You've seen that. So that seems to be the interim thing where what they're starting to do. They've got this system set up to protect themselves from the courts. If they have to look at this, it's now that's not there, so what do I do? So
I don't know if they're a competitor or not, so I don't want to talk about it. Are you getting permission to access the numbers from the companies, the trucking companies? Are you involved in that at all and providing it to other people?
we don't provide it to other people. If you're my client and you've given me access into your system, I mean, we help companies monitor.
We signed up with Bigelow.
Yep.
It's free to do that. Your broker or your shippers that you approve of, there's a way you do it, and I can't remember the name of the program. They put a name on it.
Opt-in through Visual.
And you can allow the people, and we've already done it for some, but you can allow them, but no one else, to access that information, so you don't have to do it on a monthly basis. Bigelow will.
Okay, and it's free.
For us, it's free.
Right. Okay. Visual is a local Portland company that is into big data. So anyway, that's the CSA FAST Act of what took place. The other thing that is CSA that just came out. This is what is known as Phase 3 in the implementation of CSA, and the notice of proposed rulemaking came out January 21st, so just last week. It's called SFD, Safety Fitness Determination. And to me, this is a very big deal with a lot of potential impact. I guess we'll see what the real impact is. But and I guess to explain what the new program they want to be, need to kind of explain what the current program is. And the current program is, and some of you probably have a safety rating, satisfactory or conditional. Probably nobody here has an unsat, because if you did, you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be operating. But and under today's current system, you can only get a satisfactory rating or a conditional if you have a full compliance review. I think you call it something different than that. But it takes somebody like Warren to come into your office and go through all of your records, logs, your maintenance, your driver files, all of that, and they would make a determination after the end of that, are you satisfactory, conditional, or unsatisfactory? And once they assign that and you settle on it, that becomes available under the safer system where you can, again, it's public information, public view, you can go in, and this carrier has a satisfactory rating. If you've never had that full, there's only 5 minutes left. Oh my gosh. All right, so we better speed along here. So what the SFD is going to do is going to update that, and your safety rating is going to be based, can be based on a full review like it is today, but they're also going to introduce your safety rating is going to be based on your roadside violations automatically through the CSA system. And there's only going to be one safety rating of unfit. You're not going to be satisfactory or conditional. If you fail two basics, basically they're going to take 5 of the 7 basics. They're going to use a criteria, or their plans are to use a criteria of 11 inspections in any single of those 5 basics is going to start the measurement, and it's going to be measured at some sort of set percentile. And if you have 11 violations in the same category, and you only had 11 total inspections in that category, you're 100%. And if you're at 90 or above, you are going to be considered failing that basic. And if you fail 2 basics, you're unfit. That's something, I think the percentages haven't been set, at least I haven't read what exactly they are, but it's going to work something like that. And so the road back from unfit, if you are unfit, I believe there's going to be once you're unfit, I think there's still going to be a 60-day period is the plan. And during that 60 days, a negotiated settlement, and again, they call it something different than a negotiated settlement. Basically, it's working with Oregon, would be working with Warren for a corrective action plan. And can you get yourself, convince him that you shouldn't be an unfit carrier and that you've so, and just a quick note, 60 days, FMCSA needs 45 of those 60 days in order to process your corrective action plan. So you've really got 15 days. Where are we on hours of service? Basically, they have the study going on. They completed the study for the 34-hour restart. It is now in the hands of the Office of the DOT Secretary, and we'll get a ruling on that sometime soon. Drug and alcohol testing, clearinghouse. There's going to be a clearinghouse. That rule is supposed to come into effect in May 2016. All positive drug tests, which includes no-shows and refusals to test, are going to go to this clearinghouse. That information is going to be made available to carriers, where you're going to be able to go in and say, I've got this new hire. Is he in the clearinghouse? Is he in your database? So it's going to make it tougher for the positive testing folks, or the people that skip out on the testing, get fired to go and get a new job somewhere else. So that's a pretty positive move. Hair testing has been approved. They're working out the details on how to do the test, but I can tell you that from our perspective on the Clean Fleet side, there are some problems with that. Hair testing is like double the cost, number one. Hair testing is going to be an alternative to urine testing, less invasive obviously, but it stays in your system for a lot more time than urine testing. And if you tested positive, you're in a SAP program, now you want to come back to work, you have to have a return to duty test. You take the hair sample, it's still in your system because it hasn't had enough time to clear out. So I think there's going to be some things to work out with the hair testing, but it's done. The other thing, everybody is aware that the testing rate for is down to 25% of your pool. It's now effective for 2016. Industry has shown 3 years in a row where it's the positive rate is less than 1%. It's interesting to know, we just did a study within Clean Fleet, and our positive rate showed 1.45% for Oregon. Anyway, it's down to 25% testing.
And Dave, a quarter of our carriers chose to keep their testing at 50%.
A quarter of our, we had a significant number of carriers say, I'm going to keep mine at 50%. Certainly,
They didn't want to list.
it's all your choice. You have to, at minimum, is 25% of your drivers. So entry-level driver training, that's coming out February 9th. They're doing a pilot program for drivers under 21, but they'd have to have military or National Guard experience. So that's driver coercion rule starts tomorrow. Tomorrow is the effective date, 2 minutes. All right. What else is on the FMCSA radar? There's speed limiter rule February 15th. Beyond compliance, they're trying to look at ways of rewarding carriers that spend the money to go over and above the minimums. How can you be rewarded for that? Is there points off of your CSA score? They're doing comments and studies on that. All trucks, they're looking at what should they do about mandating the use of collision warning technology and tire pressure monitoring systems, all of that kind of stuff. That may become mandatory. They're looking at effects of the 150 mile or more commute to work. And I think this came out of the accident from Walmart, the Walmart driver that hit Tracy Morgan, and the guy at the accident scene. I've been awake for 36 hours. And right then and there, as soon as that statement was made, out comes the checkbook and start writing checks. But it turns out the guy, I think, commuted before he started work. His hours of service for his truck, for his logbook was perfectly fine, but he drove for many, many hours before even getting to work, which the carrier didn't know about. And so now they're going to study the impact of the commute of a driver before he gets to work. There's going to be a petition process to challenge rulemakings that came out of the FAST Act. We're looking at detention times. I'll skip that one. From the Canadian side, e-manifest is now mandatory if you have loads going into Canada. If you didn't have the e-manifest program on January 1st, your truck is probably still parked on the U.S. side of the border, because it's mandatory now that you notify the Canadian Border Services Agency at least 1 hour in advance through their e-manifest program. The e-manifest program requires a Canada code, and that takes 3 weeks to get. Requires an SAC code. Once you start the e-manifest application, you have to obtain what they call a shared secret, which is the password, login information. They have to mail you that shared secret. They cannot email it to you. It has to be mailed, so that takes another 3 days. So if you're looking at shipping anything into Canada and you don't have e-manifest, you need to start early. Can there possibly be more? There's Oregon's ban-the-box law, which is, if you haven't heard about the ban-the-box law, if you have on your job applications, have you ever been convicted of a felony, you are ready to be convicted of a felony for having a statement on your job application. You cannot have that on there anymore. So, Oregon sick pay law, you have to pay sick pay, and for those of you that pay your drivers by the mile, that could be a little tough to figure out. How many hours of sick pay has he earned? And that's Oregon state, so if you're Oregon based, you've got to have that. So, all right. I don't know, Skip. So anyway, that's just headlines of what's happening, and probably can't be possibly